Hola. ¿Me escuchan? Hola.
Can you hear me?
¿Me escuchan?
Yes.
¿Me escuchan bien?
Hello.
Hola a todos.
I'm José Clastornik. I'm the Executive Director of Agesic, which is the e-government and social government of Uruguay, hosted by the Presidency of the Republic. Today, we're going to speak about privacy and how technology is generating an impact on the balance between the possibilities provided by technology and the idea of privacy that we as individuals want to enjoy. Let me start with a video that Victor Richard tweeted last week.
Dag Fien. Ik zie een school tegenover insecten.
Wat lief?
Ik voel 2 insecten op je rug. Kan dat?
Ja.
Slovenië vooruit. Een moto oranje. Panzer op. Zenit.
Oui, bien.
Je hebt een vriendin, Julie de...
Ja.
Een boeiend liefdesleven. 3, 4...
De vierde, daar zwaai ik meestal over, dus dat weten niet veel mensen.
Is mijn spierscheur. Maison Rouge, balkon. Ja. Vorige maand 300 euro aan kleding gespendeerd. Voor een huis dat van de eigenaar gaat veranderen. 790.000 euro.
Ja, eigenlijk.
41.
Ja.
Serieus?
Ja, dat is
Time to reveal the magic behind the magic.
Oh my god. Oh man. Ah, dat is geen nieuw eng.
In general, one of the topics that we visualize in privacy is that people realize what the problem is once you suffer it. It's like with a fire. You don't assume this problem until you realize the impact it has on you. One can say, yes, maybe these people gave them a name and they could find out and quickly access to that information on the people, but you can see it from a different perspective if you visualize that, for example, in a study conducted by academicians in the US, they took cell phones, they took pictures of people, they used algorithms for facial recognition against Facebook, and they got 30%, they could, in 30% cases, they could identify the person. And this is not optimized. This is, with the technology we have available today, you can get a lot of information about all of you. What you write, or what your friends write about you, or your relatives write about you. When you try to visualize the scope of such phenomena brought about by technology, I think we have to be aware that we are at a time when, for example, we are used to thinking that I have a watch or my sapato. 30 years later, it could be used as a cell phone. So the future we saw in the past would happen in 20, 40, 50 years' time. But today, the future is only 1 year old. We see it now. Did you see that film, Minority Report? We're talking about a film where people who have the capacity of anticipating the future get to a crime scene a little before the crime is committed, and they can prevent it. Today, the police in Los Angeles is using a big data exercise, using all the information available on crimes and murderers in the city to prevent crimes and murders, and the police are deployed in the place where they expect to have a criminal action the following day. It's something similar to what happened at this film Minority Report. In other words, we have to visualize that many of the things that we could anticipate many years into the future are happening today with very short notice, and they have an impact on our privacy. Today, we see a profile of a world. In Uruguay, personal data protection at the level of regulations started with business data on our credit. There are companies that specialize in keeping that information on our credit rating. And other companies, when they want to grant credit, they consult those clearing houses. And this is where the first difficulties start. What if the data don't reflect the reality and we as users are being given a wrong profile? What is the capacity that we really have to act to change this reality? And this is where we talk about habeas data, or the capacity of assuming that there are personal data that we need to be updated correctly in a procedure that is legal. When these laws were passed, there was no internet, and the impact was based on how companies consulted. But today the world is more connected, and the data communicated is available. The central bank at the Risk Central made all data available at our level, and that made the headlines, because many of you realized what that meant and how that information would be having an impact on you. We are not even aware of the importance of that information. Sometimes we are identified by the number of consultations we make when we are looking for credit, and they started analyzing the levels of desperation or urgency to really classify us. And I'm just talking about credit information. When our profiles are created, they see how we navigate the internet or how we drive our cars and what our preferences are, or what are the preferences of our circle of friends or family. All the data that somehow define us. And this is where the strong discussion starts. How would this have an impact on us, and do we have any control on that impact? I was saying that the future is now, and this is the graph that I sometimes show. This is the incorporation of technology in large companies. In this graph, the peak is the technology that is creating so much expectation today, what is hot today. First of all, we'll see that there are many products there, and that many of those products have an impact on our privacy. Let's talk about something standard, computing in the cloud. Where are your data? Who manages that data? By who manages, I mean, maybe if tomorrow someone is showing something that we don't want to be shown, like a video, or if it's mistaken in terms of the information it contains, where will we act? Is there a regulation to manage all that? Is that a company regulation, a company that is located in the States, or a data center that's wherever you can imagine. That's only one of the things we talked about. There are three emerging technologies: big data, social networks, and Internet for things that have a tremendous impact. There's a joke in terms of social networks that the Canadian Regulatory Authority quoted. The mother told the father, the adolescent daughter told the father, "Father, I just told this to my friends, 2,200 friends in my network." The point is that what did she tell them? That they're going on a holiday, so the house is empty. It may be a victim of a robbery. Or there are certain personal or family situations that may unexpectedly bring someone into the circle and then cause some sort of danger or harm to the family. What happens with the Internet of Things, with big data? We are going to have intelligent refrigerators that know what we eat. The cars will know where we are going to and which roads we prefer. Even today, the television sets know what we like to watch. So obviously in Internet they know how we navigate, but this will be present in all the objects that we use, and the objects will interact among them without our knowing. There are examples that are very beautiful, even the way things are profiled. You know, the capacity of putting a refeed in your clothes. You leave the supermarket and then you don't have to do a transaction. The system will know that we are leaving with those clothes. They will credit the amount and the commercial transaction will be made. But if we don't remove the devices from the clothes, you will have to scan and learn about our preference in terms of garments. And this is an implicit intelligence and a profile associated to the way we are dressed. So someone could come to sell us the type of clothes in terms of the size and colors that we prefer because they have our profiles. I said that this is part of an evolution, that it is evolving very quickly. If you visualize Facebook, for example, some people were saying in this highest moment of expectation that privacy was not going to be part of the future, that we would all publish everything, that everything was to be known, there was no more privacy. Privacy was going to turn into an object that somehow in some things will never be used again. Of course, there is a natural evolution, but we at some point had no privacy. Whether you believe that we descend from the apes or from Adam and Eve, there was no privacy at that time. And I don't know what the future has in hold for us, but the discussion today is we have this technology that is creating an impact on the way we conceive or envisage privacy and our personal data. And we have to think about this given the current context. Though we may think that in so many years' time criteria may change, what we should be doing today is think about the situation standing here and now. Thinking about the future, but thinking about today. At the level of Agesic, we started with a project of e-government. And we wanted to work, we didn't want to request information from the citizens if the state already have that information. And we thought this is going to be a problem when we have to consolidate big data at the level of the state. And in addition to that, the problem of privacy, like the Big Brother issue. How far could we go along those lines without regulating the issue of privacy and data protection to facilitate that interoperability we were after? In each of the subjects you see here on the screen, you will find not one but many problems that are being discussed today as a very heated debate around the impact on privacy. Geolocalization, smart data, big data, society of information, electronic clinical studies, DNA tests, electronic identification relative to biometric data. So how do we manage the care required so that that information is correctly managed? And here we talk about regulation. Do we regulate? How far do we regulate? There are models, like the European models, that aim at more regulation, and there are other models, like the US model, that aims at a self-regulation. But in any case, we need to be thinking about the policy, population policy, and how this regulation will be implemented. Is it going to be strict or less strict? Or is it going to be based on promotions so that there are mechanisms that allow for checking? Today, if we talk about regulation and remove certain legislation to allow ISPs to have more or less responsibility on the contents that they keep, about the websites that they host, and about the actions that may happen. We also have borders. We, here in this country, have closed databases of companies that were using data in France, for example, and that was not adequate. Why? Because we have schemes, mutual agreements with the European community, where the local regulatory body recognizes European regulatory agencies, and we can work together to determine things at the level of this global network. But it all has to do with balance. In Chile, last week, the Supreme Court ruled that electronic mail sent from an institution, giving the name of the institution, is not public access data. So when we talk about transparency, we talk about the availability of all the information in the hands of the state at a very transparent way. So how far can we go in that? The Supreme Court of Justice in Chile said that electronic mails were part of an elaboration of the final document, and as such, they were not part of the final document, so this did not require, in other words, the subject that had sent the information was not legally binding. This was not legally binding for him, and he thought this was just a working document and not a final document. But we could take the email as a communication document, as a final document, and we know that some countries react in this way. So when you send an email, it is classified according to the confidential information. So the point here is that we need to understand how each country regulates that, and we need to work on that basis. We work with the emails of an institution in one way if we know this is open to public access or not. So that sort of balance was present in Uruguay from the very beginning. The law to protect personal data and the law of access to public legislation were launched at the same time. That is one scheme that did not exist in other places, and today we start visualizing that countries like Spain and Mexico, that were leaders in the protection of data or access to data, they start incorporating this. So under the same umbrella we have access and protection of data. They come together to generate the necessary balance. What do we do in Uruguay apart from creating a regulatory framework? We worked hard within e-government in terms of structuring a vertical to generate trust in the use of ICTs. We visualize the issue of privacy and data protection in two contexts. One is what it really implies, and going beyond that, we look after the data and we try to see if we generate trust and reliability on the part of the population as to how we are using data. And this is like a kickoff or providing a foundation for that creation of trust that will go to electronic identification and to generate a more massive use, a more universal use of ITs. We talk about challenges, and we have challenges together with opportunities. What are the opportunities for a community such as the Genexus community? I think that first of all, from the viewpoint of developers, we have to understand that you cannot conceive certain applications if we just add privacy after they are created. Privacy has to be part of the design of the application. You must know that out of those applications you will need to have an informed approval, or you need to structure certain mechanisms where data need to be or not to be dissociated, depending on how you manage the data to allow for more or less privacy. There's a lot of consultancy, not only in terms of privacy itself, but in terms of security of information. They go hand in hand. I give my data to certain people because I assume that they will manage them safely. So privacy and security are connected. And there's a lot to do with change management. We have to help people understand that when their data contains certain risks, when you need to use the data in a safer way, in a more restricted way, to do so and how to do so. Now, there are so many topics that the list is really very long, and in each topic there's more than one specific problem to discuss. Where to start? Where are these topics being discussed? Very close to us at this present time. In 2 weeks' time, here in Punta del Este, we are going to have the 34th World Conference on Privacy and Technology Protection. This brings together, it's a great honor for Uruguay to have it here, to host it in Punta del Este. It's a closed event where we are going to discuss issues such as how to optimize the connection across regulatory agencies, how to make it more compatible, how to work with specific issues. But there are open sessions as well where discussions will be shared by 800 different people that are well known throughout the world. If you can attend, it will be an honor. If not, just try to get information and all the things that we will derive from that conference. So this is an open invitation to you, and remember that every time you work with technology, privacy has to be taken as a priority.
Hay preguntas por acá, no sé si hay preguntas por
Some
acá.
questions?
No sé si hay...
Sí, mi respeto.
Hello, Engineer Clastornik. I'm interested in knowing whether, if you know that there are leading companies that of course have databases, registered databases in Agesic, and violate the law, the corresponding law, which is a framework that Agesic uses, then do they go towards a penalty or do they go towards a change in policy? Very good question. This is not Agesic, but a regulating unit within Agesic. It has a legal framework for imposing penalties, but within that framework we have different levels.
De distintos niveles de sanción, desde el más sencillo, que es un apercibimiento, hasta el más alto, que es la clausura de la base de datos. Entre medio de eso tenés la capacidad de generar sanciones, digamos, por determinados valores. Se ha tenido distintas experiencias en los distintos escalones de lo que estamos hablando.
El decreto que está regulando eso es el decreto 320.
Si me preguntás en este momento no me acuerdo el número, pero supongo que sí.
Bueno, gracias.
¿Alguna otra pregunta? Muchísimas gracias por la atención y los espero. Gracias.